Bubbles, streamers, Bible jokes. Yep, we're going to have all of that this Sunday because the Sunday after Easter is Holy Humor Sunday. Okay, you got any Bible jokes, Adrienne? What do you got? What do you got? I didn't prep you for this, so let's hear it.
You did not. The only kind of joke I have, it's too long to tell. It's about Jesus golfing. And yeah, so it's just too long. I don't have a
Well,
good.
I have a few, but
Okay.
I'm going to make people wait until Sunday to hear them because I'm literally going to say them at the top of the sermon on Sunday. So no spoilers yet. But that's a way of saying I'm preaching on Sunday. It's Holy Humor Sunday. A lot going on. It's going to be a great Sunday. The first Sunday after Easter. So we'll all kind of have taken our exhales and hopefully have risen back from our Holy Week Triduum Easter comas, and Jesus rises on Sunday, but clergy rise on Monday. So here we are getting ready for the Sunday after all of that action.
Do we rise on Monday? I heard something about people being on the couch binge watching
Oh,
Netflix. I don't know.
that's true.
Yeah,
Jesus got like how many hours in the tomb? So we should get at least the same amount, right?
at least. I mean, our work is not quite as hard, so maybe half as much. I don't know.
Half as much. Well, we're talking about this because we're recording this the Thursday before Easter, so you're getting the clergy energy anticipating this little mini marathon. By the
Yeah.
time you watch this, we'll be on the couch watching Netflix or something, or back to work. So this coming Sunday, we're still in Luke. This is the last time we're in Luke. We've been in Luke since like January, and this is it. We're in the final chapter of Luke. And it continues where last Sunday Easter's text picked up. Easter had the people running to the tomb and seeing the angels, the women running to the tomb. Angels are like, he's not here. And we didn't see Jesus until this week on the road to Emmaus. So I have lots I can say. Obviously, I'm going to say a lot on Sunday. But what do you have? Can you frame us with this Emmaus Road story or anything that pops up for you before we just keep
Yeah.
rambling?
Yeah. So there are those two folks walking together on the road. They're leaving the city, I think, right?
Yep.
Leaving Jerusalem.
It's
And
Sunday. They're leaving.
it's Sunday. They're very sad. I've always loved that they're together. The strength and the invitation to community that comes out of that. That when we're in difficult times or when we're feeling maybe not our strongest, that we're journeying with a friend, with a partner, and Jesus shows up. Right? They don't recognize him, maybe because of their grief, maybe because Jesus is disguised, maybe because they're just so committed to this notion that he's dead that they can't imagine, he's not where he should be. That happens to us sometimes. We see people we know outside of the context that we know them in, and we're like, do I know you? So there's some of that going on. And then my favorite part, they sit down to have a bite to eat. Jesus is about to take off. They're like, no, come on. You've spent all this time with us. You should, at the very least, let us make some food for you. And in the breaking of the bread, they're like, their eyes are open and they're like, oh my gosh, he was with us all this time and we missed it.
Yeah.
And then he's gone.
And then he's gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a fascinating story, and it's only in Luke. We don't get this tale anywhere else. I think it's so fascinating that we go from the women at the empty tomb to now Cleopas and his friend on their walk. We never know anything about Cleopas besides this story. That's one of the characters' names it tells us in Luke. And I love, obviously, there's so much framing within the narrative of Luke with the breaking of the bread being the moment, and it makes me wonder, like, were these two people at that Last Supper? Who else got invited to that table to recognize that moment? Was there Da Vinci only painted 12? I thought there more. So I just, all sorts of questions pop off in my mind when I read little pieces like that.
Right. Right. Yeah. Well, the text often says Jesus was gathered with the disciples. I
Yeah.
don't know that it says 12 anywhere.
Nope. Yeah.
We get that sense because of the artwork, but I don't think any of the texts delineate. And so we have to imagine that they were there, that wives were there, and children were there because it was Passover, and
Totally.
the whole family and community would have gathered. So yeah, I love that idea that they may have been, probably were at that supper. That's really
Yeah.
beautiful. Or at
I
any of the many places in Luke where Jesus is
Yes.
going to a meal, getting up from a meal, just finishing. Lots of opportunities to sit at the table, which is also part of what makes this story so beautiful, because that is the quintessential, like, Jesus moment, the table, breaking of the bread at the table.
Yeah, I almost raised a few weeks ago. Could we have communion on this Sunday? Just
Yeah.
because of how the story ends. Next Sunday is a communion Sunday, May 4th. So I was like, do I want to push for that? I didn't. I obviously held off on that, but I had that inkling of like the
Yes.
text lands in a communion moment.
Right.
Should we land in a communion moment? So I don't know.
It's such a good question, Jim, because I think what this story says is we always should land in a communion moment, right?
Yeah.
Anytime we're in community, anytime we are with our friends, this is sort of the right response to
Yeah.
to fellowship. Yeah,
Well, this
the
text has a
Catholics got it
lot. Yeah.
We should have communion all the time, every time we gather.
I mean, in some senses, we are
Yes,
communities,
yes,
but the breaking bread, pouring
big
cup,
bread.
those
Right, right,
details, yeah, yeah.
right.
I love in this, and it's no surprise to you because you know all my favorite biases to bring to anything in the scripture is that sense of where is it in here? How it was Jesus, but they didn't recognize him. That sense
Right.
of not noticing Christ in the common, not
Mm,
discovering the divine in the daily. And so not to spoil too many of the where the sermon's going, that's where the sermon's going in my mind. I'm leaning in hard to that whole finding God in the places you least expect, because that's what we see here. These two people who had no expectation of meeting Jesus, a guy that they have every sense has died on their walk home. And then that in that moment of no expectation is where those expectations are superseded and God shows up in an unexpected way. So I just love that angle in this story. And you find it in other stories as well in the scripture, burning bushes, sleeping on rocks, all sorts of good places.
right. And it takes us back to what you said too about communion being in all of the different places.
Yeah.
It's not just the breaking of the bread, it's the two friends walking on the road. It's us on the
Mm,
subway. It's all of the places where human beings gather and interact. There's that moment where communion can happen and Jesus can appear.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, are your eyes open to even be surprised
Mhm.
by God showing up in the places you least expect? And I love the contrary to that would then be, are you willing to show up in a way to be that surprise of God to someone else? It's not just a passive look for God, it's an active, how can I embody God in
Mm.
the spaces around me to be that
Right.
divine joke? That's what I'm calling the sermon, the divine joke.
Yeah, yeah. It's Jesus on the A train in you and your
Yeah,
neighbor,
yeah.
right? Yeah,
So this is also Holy Humor Sunday, and I know a little bit about Holy Humor Sunday because we've talked about it the past few years in this kind of a space. I had to learn a little bit about it to say something in the sermon on Sunday, but I only know about Holy Humor Sunday because of you. You brought
yeah,
that to Riverside. I didn't know it was a thing until you said we're doing Holy Humor Sunday. What? So what is Holy Humor Sunday, and why should every church do it?
right. I wish I could remember who brought it to me, but the person who's most top of mind, do you know April Fiat?
I
Yeah.
do, yeah.
So she has written at least one beautiful prayer and probably more. She's a wonderful liturgist. Um, and so I think she's part of my understanding of it and at the center of it. So there's this notion, and I think it goes back many centuries, that on the Sunday after Easter we would celebrate that Jesus has the last laugh over death. I think it was in the Catholic Church, maybe 16th century. I don't, that's not me. I'm not that person who knows the dates or the century that it happened. I'm told that it went underground for a time because the priests became so vulgar in their jokes that it was becoming offensive. But I love the idea that the week after Easter we get to have some divine fun, some
Yeah.
silly humor, to be playful and delighted that Jesus has done this thing for us, and that we get to
Yeah.
revel in the good gift of his love.
One thing I read is that it would be a Sunday when they would play pranks on the priests. So
Yeah.
might want to watch your back. You never know what's going to happen. Don't worry, I don't have anything planned. But I think I just love that sense of levity as
Yes.
part of a liturgy.
Yes.
Liturgy can often feel like this stuffy thing, button up your coat all the way, kind of. It's like, no, this is when you roll up your sleeves and pull out the rabbit from your hat and, wave the bubbles during the processional and the streamers. That's what's happening at Riverside. So there's lots of ways that we'll embrace this on this Sunday. And like we do at Riverside, we bring that levity, I think, every Sunday, but it's fun to have a dedicated Sunday where it just has a different kind of purpose and weight from beginning to end.
Yes, yes. And so part of it's humor, some of it's joy and delight, just also a chance to sort of bask in the recognition that God delights in us, loves us,
Yeah.
certainly has power over evil and the devil and death. That is
Yeah.
a real, I think, especially in this moment in our personal lives, but also in our political, socioeconomic lives, to remember, who is the powerful one, and to be able to laugh in the face of all of the other things because of who God is
Yeah.
also a wonderful release for us. Another embodied release for us.
Well, I know at Riverside in the nave, kids will be there the whole service. Typically, most Sundays, kids will go to their education space after the message for all ages, about, third of the way through the service. But
Right.
this Sunday, they're going to be there beginning to end. So I'm just aware of that broader audience who will be present with us. So part 3 of the sermon is currently titled A Theology of Bluey. So that will be making a very intentional appearance, knowing the kids will perk up, but I think we'll all learn from Bluey. I think Bluey is just a show for humans packaged as a show for kids. So it's a great, great thing. So I'm looking forward to that. And the other thing I'm holding with this Sunday, this is a Sunday where it's like juggling.
Hmm.
Holy Humor Sunday,
And
first
you
Sunday after
juggle,
Easter.
right?
What's that?
You are
I, I
juggling,
can
right?
I can juggle 3 things for about 30 seconds. So I
Okay.
got that much figured out. So
Better
that's
than
all we
me.
got here.
Okay.
Yeah. But the third thing is it's also the Sunday where we will kind of have some emphasis or intentionality around Earth Day and Earth Sunday, because Earth Day happens just the week prior. So it'll land here. So there's going to be a little bit of Earth Day woven in, which, when my direction is finding God in these unexpected places, it's easy to say, well, where do we find God in the unexpected places around us? I'll go into a little bit more on
Yeah,
Sunday, but
yeah.
it's just
And the
lots of pieces to hold.
Right. And the earth also is an opportunity and a place where we take joy and delight. And so it is a really beautiful thing to pull into Holy Humor Sunday.
Yeah.
That like God has given us this beautiful world with all of its, riches and it's spring is here and we're seeing the blossoming of trees and things shooting up. I was just walking by the garden area where I live. So yeah, it's a great Sunday for that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I, at one, because you invited me to preach this Sunday quite a while back. So it's been on my mind for a while. And I
Mhm.
was playing with both the text and all the trappings of it, and then also just Holy Humor Sunday as a concept and container. And
Mhm.
so I almost went the route, and I just feel like I couldn't pull it off. So I will bring what I bring because that always has a sense of joy and levity that fits. But there was a part of me that was really leaning in and trying to think, could I write a sermon that is just a stand-up comedy routine?
Oh
And
my
so I like
goodness.
watched a bunch of stand-up comics and immersed myself. I was like, I want to. I'm not. It's not going to be a beginning to end. Track your laugh per minute. Maybe another year I can pull that off. But that
Maybe
was
next
like
year.
that's the dream, to pull that one off. I need a few times to
Yeah.
bomb on stage before I have my first attempt in a pulpit. But yeah,
That would be fantastic. So we had a stand-up comic at my last church in Brooklyn. And during lockdown, we were able to get him to start worship with this whole set. And one of the jokes I can remember, he was like, you're at a Brooklyn church because they've got regular Jesus and gluten-free Jesus, right? Like only in Brooklyn, only in New York City, people can you get your Jesus however you want it. It was so funny, and it was all particular to our church. And he'd written this whole set, and
mm,
people absolutely loved it. So
yeah.
it can be done. His wasn't sermon length. It was maybe 7 minutes, maybe eight.
Yeah, that was the intimidating part of like, how do I? Because I had like bits and starts of like ideas for jokes that
Yeah.
fit for church and Riverside and the text. But I was like, how do I stitch it together to still be a sermon and not just be a
Right.
series of like one-offs? So that's It's a lot of worlds colliding, but someday maybe I'll raise my hand for that challenge. But
I think that's a
yeah.
great challenge. I think people would love it. I'll have to see if I can find that video and send it to you. It was really brilliant. You did a great job.
Uh, well, this Sunday brings us into the season after Easter. This is the end of Luke, and then next we move into Acts. So, any sense of like where we're going that you want to point us towards in the weeks coming up here?
Absolutely no idea. No, I'm not preaching next. So Tim is
It's true.
preaching, right?
Yep.
It's Older Adult Sunday, and I know he shifted the text a little away from the stoning of Stephen to something else.
Something else. Yeah.
And then I've got the next week, but I
Yeah.
have no idea. I mean, it's,
We're
it's
yeah.
yeah,
We're recording this before Easter. You don't
it's
have to
Monday,
have any idea.
Thursday, so our brains are like, it's like Acts. I'm trying to get, Jesus to the
Yeah.
tomb and up.
Yeah.
But yeah,
The fact that we've had this coherent of a conversation for 15 minutes on the Thursday before Easter, I think that's, a win already. So,
yeah, for sure. I'll take it.
well, this coming Sunday, lots of great stuff happening. Just our normal Sunday at Riverside, which always has great stuff happening. Bible study in the morning, in the room, on Zoom. Join us for worship. However, wherever you can, trcnyc.org to find out all the information. There'll be virtual coffee hour after. I'm excited to join that to chat a bit. For people in the room, we have a candidate forum with our lay leader candidates that Sunday afternoon. So there's good stuff happening. I think that's also going to be on Zoom, so people online can participate. Lots happening in this spring season at Riverside. Always a lot of fun.
Yes, it's going to be super exciting. Definitely come to the candidates forum.
All right. See you at all those things, everybody. Have a great week. See you Sunday.